Hey everyone, Griffin Lobster. That's right, it's time for another non-LP video before I disappear for another 3 months or so. Don't you feel lucky? It's going to be one of those where I talk about video games, and a fairly vocal number of you seem to enjoy these quite a bit, so I guess I'm going to oblige you specifically instead of everybody else. Once again, I'm going to be talking about a video game without any spoilers, so I would appreciate it if you returned the favor and didn't put any spoilers in your comments. Like at all. If I see a spoiler, I'm going to delete it. Just be a good person. Talk about the game without any spoilers. Again, this is just to start a dialogue with people who've played the game or people who haven't played the game. And that's pretty much it. Let's get right into it. After playing Bioshock Infinite, I figured nothing could even come close to matching its brilliance this year. I figured it would be everyone's game of the year, a shoe-in, or almost everyone's game of the year, just because that game had... It was a really important game to me. I figured Grand Theft Auto 5 had an outside shot of being as good, but not better. Anyway, that was until Naughty Dog's latest game, The Last of Us. Naughty Dog is, of course, best known this generation for the Uncharted series, right here, which is honestly one of my favorite gaming series ever. Not just of this generation or just of the PS3. It's one of my favorite trilogies ever. Just an incredibly fun game. If you haven't tried those, you gotta check it out. I think it's interesting that Naughty Dog decided to start a new IP before the next generation. I find that to be both admirable and honorable. Anyway, The Last of Us. Under its veneer of production values and, frankly, epic budget, it is the harshest and most brutally human game from this developer thus far, and one of the very best games of the generation, frankly. Let's get right into it. It was released during E3, which, right off the bat, I love the confidence of that move, that while everybody else is thinking about E3 and next gen and the games that are still coming out, that Naughty Dog releases this game. It's like, this is going to sell pretty well. You know what, they were right. I'm pretty sure The Last of Us is already the fastest selling PS3 exclusive yet. So The Last of Us tells the story of Joel, a man who lost everything when a fungal pandemic that basically turns its victims into mushroom zombies swept the world in 2013. Fast forward a couple of decades later, and he's living in one of the many militia-run quarantine zones across America. And he's tasked with delivering Ellie, a 14-year-old girl who's never known the world pre-apocalypse, into the hands of this paramilitary organization called the Fireflies, who believe in hope for humanity and a cure to the zombie-esque pandemic. And, as with anything in this kind of genre, the story features just a cavalcade of zombie stereotypes and genre cliches. But when everything is pulled off with the pizzazz and, once again, confidence of The Last of Us, I find myself not caring about stuff like that. As is the case with most noteworthy, honorable, post-apocalyptic stories, it's not about zombies. And sidebar here real quick, I don't even want to call these zombies. I hesitate to call these zombies and to call this a zombie game because these creatures are somehow even more horrific than zombies. They're some of the most effectively unnerving enemies I've seen in a game for a long time. And it's very subtle the way the game pulls it off. Anyway, it's not about the zombies, it's about the humans, which is another genre cliche. But when the characters are this good, this real, again, cliche is a completely moot point. Let me just say that this has the best voice acting, the best facial animation, and the best mocapping I've seen in any game ever. And that's saying a lot, especially considering the 3 games I just showed, the Uncharted games, also have incredibly high production values. And I'm not sure if it's actually better. I think it's actually better. But because of the stark humanness of this story, the efficacy of the attention to detail is so much greater. You get tied to these characters so effectively. And it's backed by an amazing script. The dialogue is always sharp and toned perfectly. Every new character is interesting, adds something new to the table. And aside from a few AI hiccups, even the fodder characters that you're killing constantly add a level of realism to this world. And this world is almost shockingly real, practically hyper-real. It's not sensationalized or over the top. There's none of the explosions every few seconds or death-defying bullshit like in the Uncharted series. It feels very down-to-earth. And it's one of the many ways that it's unlike Uncharted. And it's all part of this world. And there's some strange beauty in a land that was, in seeing a land that was once dominated by humans, you see the echoes of civilization, and it's now overrun by vegetation. You see a rabbit or a squirrel or a deer will run past, and it's a sign that while humanity may be at its conclusion, that the world isn't. And it draws attention to the ethnocentrism, I know, right? Ethnocentrism, of the zombie apocalypse genre. And it sort of turns on its head the idea, sort of the trope of the genre, that untainted, unzombified human life is the most supremely valuable thing. That's something that I've seen present in every other zombie story to date. But this game really seems to focus in on the fact that human life before zombification isn't as great as we think it is. Because if it was truly as valuable as all the other zombie games, movies would think it is, then you wouldn't kill so much in this game. Like the combat, the body count that Joel racks up, the sheer brutality of the combat, the fact that this is the goriest game I've probably ever played, and the constant onsets of violence. The constant onset of violence. It's like fight after fight after fight, and it gets mentally tiresome at times, but it never becomes a slog, or it never gets truly boring. But it devalues human life. All that together devalues human life in a shocking way that I think is important to understanding this game. As you progress, Joel's methods get more and more akin to that of a crazy person. And the player versus player character disconnect is the most pronounced I've seen in a game since last year's Spec Ops: The Line. And this is Naughty Dog we're talking about here. The creator of uber likable protagonists like Nathan Drake, of the creator of wisecracking sidekicks like Daxter or Sully. I think it's so profound that Naughty Dog would go there, would bring the player out of its comfort zone, make them disagree with the choices of the character they're playing, and it does so without banging you over the head with it. It's very subtle. As a matter of fact, this game is full of narrative subtleties, which displays confidence in the series. It just displays confidence in its own ability to tell a story, but also displays confidence in the player to pick up on these hints. And all those add up to a game that feels very mature. And so all these elements, the brutal, often desperate combat, the never-ending escape from one danger to the next, and the devaluation of human life, it all culminates to the game's ultimate message, and which I think is this: that pure, raw, ugly survival is in and of itself another form of zombification. Boom. That's what I think, anyway. And it all leads up to a head-spinning conclusion that hasn't left my mind since, and probably won't leave my mind for a while. And lastly, is the game fun? At times, straight up no. There are some times a lot of times this game I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the characters. The combat is, for the most part, responsive, and when it gets desperate, there's some fun to that, and there's a sick satisfaction with pulling off these brutal kills that you feel the satisfaction, and all of a sudden you feel the disconnect, where you're like, oh man, that was really, really gnarly what I just did to that dude. And that's another one of those really effective moments in the game. But once again, like Spec Ops: The Line last year, it managed to be engaging without necessarily being fun 100% of the time. If you have a PS3, you simply must check it out. And to conclude, if they didn't have the title already, I think Naughty Dog is undoubtedly the definitive developer for the PlayStation 3. And possibly of this entire generation. I probably have to think through that a little bit more before making a statement that's that overarching and grandiose. But there you go. The Last of Us. Excellent, excellent game. Top tier stuff, honestly. The fact that we got this and Bioshock Infinite in 1 year, it's two games like that in 1 year is highly unlikely. And it's a gift. And I love to see this gaming generation going out with a bang. And we still got one bang left. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 will be really good too. So this is going to be a good year. Good year for games. Once I look back on it, I'm sure. So yeah, so share your thoughts. Did you love the game? Did you hate the game? Did you hate that I loved the game? If you haven't played it, I think you should play it. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and yeah, bye bye. I love you.